I don't know how better to say it, but I am a quitter. Not of a lot of things, not even of a vast majority of things generally, but today I have to confess that I am about to quit. What are you quitting, you ask? I'm quitting some books. I recently rewatched Ariel Bissett's video about unread books because she takes a lot of time to talk about how a lot of us in the booktube community have shelves full of books that we've never really read before. And we wish we could talk about what we can't because we haven't taken the time to read them, and that we haul books a lot and we never really talk about them or review them because we haven't read them. I feel like to some extent there's some promise when you look at a shelf full of unread books and look at them and see that they could be anything. There's so much potential in them, but at the same time, there's still things that you bought that you haven't read and haven't enjoyed. And why have that if you're not going to do anything with them? And then there are people like me who get so interested in many different books at once that they start a wide variety of them and can't make it all the way through. On principle, if I begin a book, I really like to see it all the way through to the end. There have been very few books, Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, that I have not finished. But it's been a very select few. And often I just get so caught up in one book over the other, or another book on top of the 4 that I've already picked out to read, that I just don't find myself with the time to finish the 4 that I've already started. And a lot of the time I do another thing that Ariel Bissett mentions, is take reading breaks. This is a whole separate video, but reading breaks are okay, where you just don't really feel like committing yourself to the length of a novel or to the act of reading for a little bit of time, and it's okay to take a break and do something else, get caught up in something else, maybe take a step outside the page, spend more time with people who are real and people who aren't characters. And often I take reading breaks not because I want to, but because I have to, because I haven't got the time to read what I want, and I often find myself reading things more like A Political Economy of the Middle East, or Constitutional Law for a Changing America, Section 1, Rights and Powers, things like that. Things that I wouldn't, snuggle up in bed, open and say, gonna do a few chapters of this before I pass out. But let me get to the point. There are books that I have begun that I have put off because I felt like reading them at one time, and now I don't anymore. And I'm so far into them, and I've let them languish half-read so far into my life that I'm gonna have to close them, take out the bookmarks, and start them again someday when I feel like I'm ready for it. Ariel Bissett talks about how books on our shelves don't technically have an expiration date, but your excitement to read them has an expiration date, and my excitement to read these books that I've started oh so long ago really does. Now you may be asking, how long is so long ago? Well, let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. Lake Wobegon Days by Garrison Keillor. I keep a reading journal it's actually quite literally called a reading journal, with thoughts that I have about the book. It's got little places to put the number of stars on it. It's pretty great, but it also lets you write down the date that you started the book and the date that you ended the book. And if we go back far enough through this, I believe we can find that I started Lake Wobegon Days in May of 2012. It's been over a year since I got past page 78 in this book because I just wasn't having a great time reading it. It wasn't intriguing me as much as I thought it would, but since it's Garrison Keillor and I met him and I love him, and I think that this is probably a really important book, especially about the time, not the time I grew up in perhaps, but the culture is similar to that which I grew up in, and I think I really want to read it, and I think it's really great because I have a lot of respect for him and his prose. So this is not just something that I can put down and give up, but it's not something I want to read right now. So given that I don't remember any of the beginning, but when I go back and read it, I know that I'm going to fly through it because I'll know exactly how it reads and how it feels to my mind. There goes one. Another book from May of 2012 is something that I tried to read more recently this summer, and that is The Pixar Touch by David A. Price. This is a really great book, and it talks about how the company of Pixar came to be, and Rebecca and myself both love Disney Pixar. So I've really been trying. I really want to read this. This is a nonfiction book, so it's basically a direct account. It's got my plane ticket home from Heathrow stuffed in the back, so we know what I was doing back in April on the plane. But here I am on page 96, and it's not an incredibly long book. It's just over 250 pages. So ostensibly, if I put some time into this, I could do it. But I'm a little backed up with some other books that I'm reading right now. But I can't really bring myself to pull out the bookmark because this is one of those books that you don't have to really remember what came before. You can just keep reading because it's nonfiction. So I'm not going to dramatically pull the bookmark out of this. But I am going to put it on hiatus. I'm going to go mark it on Goodreads about which page that I ended on. And I'm not going to come back to it until I feel like I want to. Now, a little more recently than May, I started the concert ticket, which I bought in Oxford, England, in March, I believe. It's still got the receipt in it and everything. But as interesting as this book is, I keep trying to tell myself, you should finish this, you should read it. This should be the book that you read today, not anything else, not any of those other books that you've already started, because that's a conversation that I have with myself. You've started 4 books. Which one are you going to read today? And which one should you really read today? Which one should you spend a lot of time with? And I don't like that feeling. I like maybe having 1 or 2 books to choose from that I'm going to be reading, like actively reading throughout a period of time. That is not a textbook that I'm not going to have to take notes on, that I'm not going to be tested on. And I've tried to do that with this book, and I've tried to tell myself that I should be putting this first because this one is also pretty short. It's 300-something pages, and I'm on page 92 of this book. So it's almost a third of the way through. And I'm not enjoying it as much as I thought I was going to. I'm not enjoying it as much as I thought I would based on the back, based on the beautiful cover, which I'm sure I talked about when I first picked it out. And so I really think that this is going to be one of those books where this happens. Although I gotta save this receipt because this is the original Blackwell's receipt. Right now, Bex and I are reading some books for review, and I think it's likely that we will be for quite a while now. But one book that I'm going to read in conjunction with that I've already started, that I'm choosing to actively continue reading, is The Charity. And this is a book written by one of my friend's mothers. It's outside my typical genre that I would pick out. It's about terrorism, and there's some murder that happens, and it's all in this small town in Massachusetts, which is only a few states away from where I'm from. So it's really interesting. Also, I told the author that I would read it and review it for her. So I'm reading The Charity, and I'm going to keep reading it alongside the books that we're doing to review. And that's that. Those are the books that I'm keeping. Those are the books that I'm stopping. And part of me wonders to myself, is this okay? Is this okay that I'm quitting these books? Does this feel like I'm doing them a disservice? Like I was interested in them once and they weren't good enough to hold my attention? Do they still have any value? And I think the answer to a lot of those questions really depends on how you're feeling. Ariel talks about the excitement of reading books expiring. And I think my excitement for those books has definitely expired. I think I could be excited by them again, maybe when I'm not so busy, maybe when I'm not reading a political economy of the Middle East. I don't know if a lot of other people have half-read books that they leave out in plain sight, sort of as a reminder, saying, hey, you have to come back to me, other than myself. But I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are people that like to take on more than one book at a time, even though sometimes it's not really possible to get through it. I think it's okay. I think it's okay sometimes to be a quitter and stop reading a book in the middle, whether you plan to come back to it or not. And if you don't plan to come back to it, I think that's fine. I don't think that makes you any less of a reader. I think it means that either your excitement is gone or the book didn't captivate you like you thought. And I think it's perfectly okay to put it down. As someone who has a driving force behind her to finish all books she reads, I think I need to listen to my own advice a little more. And maybe I won't come back to some of these. Maybe I won't finish The Pixar Touch. Maybe I won't ever pick up Lake Wobegon Days again. Maybe I just won't be feeling like it. But I tried. And I think that's really the important part here, is that I tried. So if you have any particular thoughts on unfinished books, let me know in the comments below. We can have a little discussion about when the time should be that you sort of say goodbye and take your bookmark back and say, maybe I'll come back to you later. And let me know if you think being a quitter is quitting and quitting isn't great. What are your thoughts on unfinished books and half-read books and half-started books and books that, you know, maybe weren't your thing? Let me know. I hope you're all having lovely weeks and lovely lives, and I will see you around the campfire. That's not usually what I say, but I think it's okay.